Okay, I'll call together I'll call to order the Thursday, December 10th, 2020 meeting of the North Andover Community Preservation Committee. Virtually, I'll start by reading the preamble to our meeting. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Andover Community Preservation Committee will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandovermass.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8, Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time by technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right, with that out of the way, we do have a fairly full agenda and a couple of guests tonight. So as always, being mindful of everyone's time, we'll go ahead and get ourselves started. I see CJ has just joined as well. Great. First item on the agenda, I want to introduce Dan Beckley. Dan is staff planner at the town, who Melissa has graciously volunteered to be dedicated here to CPC as a way of helping us in our interactions with the town. Dan, I'll give you the floor for a couple seconds just to introduce yourself. And Dan's gonna be, I think, really, really helpful in keeping us on track and making sure all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Yeah, Brian mostly covered it. So the relatively new staff planner, going to be doing things like bringing CPC projects before the planning board or helping coordinate between CPC and other boards and committees. Right now, what I'm doing is first project is applying or requesting a watershed district special permit waiver for the Glenny Woodlawn parking lot, and the next thing I'm going to be working on is a site plan review waiver for the Usler parking lot.
Great. Jumping right in the deep end. It's much appreciated. Thanks, Dan. And feel free as we get through these, some of these meetings, if you've got, any kind of pieces of information, anything that we're misstating, feel free to, ping me, let me know so we can obviously make sure that we're on track. So, all right, next item on the agenda. Hi, Frank, how are you? I think you're on mute, just so you know. We have Dave Rimmer from Essex County Greenbelt, who has joined us this evening regarding the Glenny Woodlot specifically. So I think, Dave, you wanted to talk about, maybe give us a quick update on your plans for the parking area, and I think you wanted to discuss signage with us, correct? You're on mute, Dave.
How's that?
That's better.
Yeah, Dave Rimmer from Essex County Greenbelt. I'm the Director of Stewardship, and I don't know if you want me to launch in now to what I'm here to talk about, or just wait for when we come up in the agenda. But yeah, I am here to talk about a few things about this town-owned Glenny Woodlot property.
You're on the agenda now, so feel free to go right into it.
Okay, well, I think the primary topic for tonight is the property name, but I think most of you probably know the background that Greenbelt assisted the town with purchasing this parcel, and as part of the deal, we agreed to design and construct a parking area for the property, and so we began that process, and I met probably 6 weeks ago, or maybe a little bit less, with Amy Maxner, with the Conservation Commission. I'll plead ignorance. I didn't realize that about this, the special permit needed with the watershed protection district, if that's the correct terminology. So we agreed, Amy and I agreed we were out of any jurisdictional wetland areas. And I was not aware that I needed any other, permits or special reviews by the planning board. So we launched into the project, which was completed, and then realized we needed the permit. So as Dan mentioned, we're going to move forward with seeking a waiver, and I'm feeling a little sheepish about that, but that's just the way it is. If you haven't been by there, the parking lots really came out well, though, and I think it's going to be a great amenity for the town. So it's pretty much done now, minus any signage. So, one of the other things we agreed to is to do the signage, but we want to agree on a name. So that's really up to you folks. I think we think the Glennywood lot is kind of a natural name for the parcel and for the access point, which will connect into the town forest. But it's up for debate. So I did, and I don't know if you all have had a chance to see kind of a very basic mock-up of the sign that we prepared.
It's in our packet. So it should be on the Google.
That's sort of a basic design that we use. We use a couple different kind of signs at Greenbelt in general. One is we call a hanging sign, like I've shown you. Another is sort of a fixed standing sign that's more parallel to the road and has text on one side and our logo on one side. The hanging sign is perpendicular to the roadway, and you can see coming from both directions. So that's what we're proposing for that site. I think it'll fit in. The question is really the name, and then, I don't know if there are standards in town for this type of signage. I mean, we can get all the way down to fonts and colors and things of that nature, and we're happy to. We have a very, very talented graphic design person on our staff, so we can pretty much design and produce whatever is wanted. But I haven't really gotten a lot of feedback yet, other than kind of looking at the town website and picking, the kind of banner color across the top of the website is kind of a bluish color. So we kind of went with that as one of the colors on the sign. It's sort of a two-tone sign with the name above, and it says Town of North Andover below, but it says just North Andover. It could say Town of North Andover. It could say a property of North Andover. It could say, whatever you all want below the name. So that's the sign that would, the property sign. And then we're working with, the Friends of North Andover Trails and Glenn Aspesley, which I'm sure a lot of you know, who's going to work with us on an informational kiosk layout. And there's actually an Eagle Scout that's come forward to offer to build the kiosk, frame. So we'll work with Glenn to design the kiosk panel. We'll get that produced. We'll work with the Scout to make sure that he's designing something that fits the frame we get produced. And ultimately, we'll put that up. that will have a map, that will have information about the property, a trail map, and a little bit of background on the acquisition. Talk about how the property came about. But it's really a Town of North Andover kiosk. It's not meant to be a Greenbelt kiosk, other than maybe mentioning that we had some involvement with the project. So we can vet that kiosk language and design with this committee if that's appropriate, when that time comes. That's sort of phase two. We'd like to get a property sign up pretty soon and sort of fling the gates open, if you will, and let people start using I think I keep saying we, because I'm so used to opening parking lots and things of my own. It's up to you all, obviously, but I think it's ready for use, and with a sign would be ready to go. So
Sure.
with that said, I'll stop talking. I've taken too much time already, and I'll let you all, think about it or talk about it.
No,
We're
no,
at
no, not at all. Thank you, Dave. And Bill shared his screen so you guys can see the mock-ups that Dave's group put together of the sign. It's interesting, Dave. I think in some ways you're kind of forcing our hand, which is something we've been talking about for a long time, which is project signage across the the portfolio of properties. So, I think it's later on our agenda to discuss specific designs and come up with something that's consistent. So this signage mock-up that you guys did is not necessarily following any kind of greenbelt branding, if I'm understanding that correctly, right? This is just a
no, just the roughly the size is similar to what we use. But typically our signs have our logo at the top and then a separate panel that hangs below that has the property name. So if for some reason the town wanted to, I mean, the town doesn't have a logo per se, but there is obviously a town seal. But in our experience, town seals sometimes they're really busy. And honestly, I haven't looked at if North Andover has a town seal, but just typical town seals have a lot going on, and they don't project very well when you're looking at them from a distance. But with that said, maybe there's a way to, mock it up and have that, maybe that's something you want to have in the sign. That's really up to you. But yeah, this is just you can imagine a graphic designer. What we're looking at here is pretty simple. She probably threw this together in like 15 minutes.
Sure.
And so we can, again, you guys can put some thought into it and get back to me, and we can then take that and incorporate it in. And I don't mean to hijack the design, of the sign either. We sort of agreed to do this sign, so we're offering to help, design it. And if that means helping you guys come up with some standards, I think we'd be willing to, do that. But I guess my only point would be we would hope that it wouldn't be months and months down the road before we were in a position to actually produce a sign and get it in place there.
Perfectly fair. And signage is a big priority for us for all the properties. So, not hijacking at all. You're if anything else, kind of lighting a little fire under us to make sure that we get it done. So,
Okay.
I did have one question. I guess maybe we'll tackle the name first, which is something that we should be able to walk out of here tonight with an understanding on. And maybe this is almost a Glenn question. The intention is this is going to connect, I guess, to the town farm property, but the town farm trails themselves are largely the south side of Dale Street. And anyone else who knows more about this, feel free to speak up. But that's, I think, my understanding of this trail network. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Brian, I do think, having walked it myself, I don't think there's any practical connectivity to the main part of the town farm, because it basically leads into a rookery, and it's all wet. And so there might be a very narrow land bridge someplace that you can cut across, but I'm not aware of it. Glenn may know, but practically speaking, if you're going to go there, you're going to go there to see the birds and just walk back through there.
Right. So, and then you have the rest of the town farm trail on the south side of Dale Street, correct? Which kind of runs way back, and gets back towards Bradford Street, if I understand it, as I'm looking at, probably where the ropes course is and stuff.
Right.
I guess, I wouldn't want to necessarily, confuse it with the town farm trail at all. Not that this would. So I'm fine with calling it Glenny Woodlot. I don't know why I would.
Yeah.
No,
I think it ties into the historic nature of the property and, a long-term sort of owner. And the Glennies were pretty generous in their sale to the town.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the name?
No, I think Glenny Woodlot is perfect.
Great.
Great. Yeah.
Anyone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? I'll have to do a
Aye.
roll call vote on this one, guys. Just, Terry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
John,
Yeah,
CJ,
Yes.
Frank,
He's
Frank.
still
I
on
think
mute.
yes, yeah, okay. And I'm a yes as well. So Glenny Woodlot it is.
Great.
Regarding the sign design, we are planning on discussing that a little bit later tonight. So Dave, if it's okay with you, maybe if we rather than have you hang on all night for this, maybe we have a discussion about that a little later on this evening. Kind of see if we can get things moving on our end. Hopefully we can make some sort of decisions on it tonight. Maybe a little bit challenging for us, but we may have to wait till next month's meeting. Does that pose you guys any big challenges from a time perspective?
No, I mean, I guess, no, it doesn't. I guess one thing to think about is, so until today, I think there was a large piece of equipment parked in the entrance to the parking area. It was removed today. So, right now the lot is open. It can be left open, or I could try to run up there with some sort of orange cones and block it off, or maybe the DPW could do that, or if the desire is to kind of have it remain closed until a sign goes up, then that's just a decision to be made.
Does it need to be closed without signage?
I mean, that's completely I mean, really, this is, I don't know exactly how conservation land is managed in the town of North Andover. So it's really your guys' call totally on that. I'm of a mind at Greenbelt that we kind of I like to have the infrastructure in place so that people aren't just coming onto a property and there's no signage, the trails aren't marked, there's nothing going on, they don't quite know where to go. But I have not hiked the full length of the woods road that leads out of the parking area and gets back to the other town land that's further in.
Yeah.
I think Glenn Aspesley and Fonat probably have a good sense of whether there's any possible trail connectivity back there. But anyways, with that said, it's really up to you to leave it open or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
from
I ride by there a lot. And I just think given the fact that it's remote, if you actually put a fence up, it might actually be more tempting than if you just leave the parking lot there. I mean, there's a parking lot on the other side, next to that kind of outbuilding behind the field. There's a parking lot on the other side. Those are all open. I feel like,
Great.
if someone wants to drive in there and park, there's probably little or no harm at this point. And it might actually, if you put something up to keep people out, it might actually get vandalized at that point.
So I'll comment two quick things. One is, I don't know if your DPW probably doesn't have this at all on their radar for plowing and whether they would want to plow, but ultimately it's going to be the town's decision to plow it for access. And then secondly, there's nothing right now that's really blocking, someone that was a little bit adventurous or ambitious, wanting to sort of drive beyond the parking area and down the woods road.
Okay.
So, one additional piece of infrastructure might be some kind of, that's a tricky one because you don't necessarily want to block it off permanently, at least in many instances. You wouldn't want to put a couple of big boulders there because then an emergency vehicle couldn't get through if there was an issue, or something like that. But at the same point, you don't want to put a full gate across the whole thing because you want people to be able to walk through. So, anyways,
I agree with Bill. I think it would be pretty benign if you let people park. The only criteria I would have is safety. And if you finish the parking lot, I think it's fine. I think your point about maybe you just even for now put some sort of tree or something to preclude people from driving through. But I doubt if anybody would. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
He has done it for 30 odd years, and there was always an entry there. So I doubt if they'll do it now.
Okay.
Well, you have a lot of faith in John Q. Public, and I do too. It's a little more inviting now than it used to be to pull in there and check it out. But I agree. There's not a really anywhere to go there too far, anyways. So, at this point, I'm happy to just wait for some feedback from you on the sign design, and we can come up with a few samples of different things based on your feedback and take it from there. It doesn't take long to produce the signs. Our sign vendor is pretty quick, maybe 3 weeks.
Okay.
So, one thought I had was to try to build the frame for the sign and get that in the ground, like in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
So, if you wanted to allow me to use my discretion to pick the spot for that, then we could go ahead and do that, and then it'd just be a matter of hanging the sign when the sign comes in. And that's just a pressure treated 6x6 post with an arm that comes off of it, like sort of basically what shows in that image. Pretty simple.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with that.
Right. No, I think that would be good to get it done.
Okay.
The ground is frozen if it's.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and do that then. And the kiosk frame, I don't think we won't be ready to do that till the spring, but
Okay.
That sounds like a game plan. So we'll get the sign frame installed, and I'll wait to hear back from you with some feedback on the sign design itself.
Great. And Dan Beckley, if you could put it on your maybe radar just to check in with Melissa, just make sure that the maintenance and just make sure everyone's on board with that and understands what we're planning to do, just so we know, not that we have to make any decisions on it, but I want to make sure it's on the radar. I'm sure it is, just given the process it's gone through. So, okay. Does anyone have any other questions for Dave? All right. Dave, thank you very much for joining us. Let you get on with your night.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, good. We'll get more into the science discussion as we get a little bit further on tonight. Next on our agenda is Maggie Cleary. Sorry, am I saying the right? Has joined us, the new executive director of the North Andover Housing Authority. So everyone should have gotten in their packets the comprehensive needs assessment, which was completed, along with the summary of Housing Authority projects. And I think in some way you may have prioritized these. But Maggie, I'm going to give the floor to you. I'm not sure that everyone has had the opportunity to read all 120 pages of the report. I tried to get through as much as I could. I will say it was, in fact, comprehensive. It was, I think, just what the Housing Authority needed to kind of get a handle. I think I think advocates referred to it as an owner's manual for the property, which I think it really does serve with that. All it's missing are the price tags on some of these things. So with that, Maggie, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself to the committee and let's kind of go through some of your items.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie Cleary. I'm the executive director at the Housing Authority. I started here October 20, 2019, so it's just been a little over a year. It hasn't been the year that I expected to have with the pandemic, but we're making progress. And, one of the first things that I was able to see right away is how generous the CPC has been to the Housing Authority. And, North Andover and our housing residents are really lucky because I talk to people from other housing authorities a lot and they don't have CPC money coming in, and, they're very envious of the projects that I can say that we've done here before I started and that we haven't coming up in the works. So I don't know if you would like to hear about some of the current projects that are ongoing or more the project that I have in mind for the next calendar year?
Well, I think it may have a couple of things, right? You know, you sent along in your memo, we don't need to spend too much time on it, but you gave us kind of an update on 3 of the outstanding projects, which I can quickly summarize. You know, number 2 on our list, we closed out last month. That was the Bingham Way parking lot. So that one's all set. Number 1, I believe, actually, you guys may have just submitted the invoice for the generators, which Dan and I are going to process and get that done. And I think that will close out the project at that point, correct?
Correct.
Great.
Yep.
If you can give maybe a quick update on number 3, which is I think the Francis and Baldwin Kitchens and Bath, which we funded last year.
Yes. So number 3, you know, that's a huge project. We're very excited about it. The residents are excited about it. We had some good momentum going in early 2020. We hired the architect, Shika Jindal from Architectural Solutions, and she was hired through the Department of Housing and Community Development Designer Selection Committee. And we issued a qualifications-based request for proposals, and her firm came out on top. So in early February, she toured the whole property, started work on her plans, you know, in and out of all 24 units. And then the pandemic started. All 24 units are occupied. She has been able to do some work based on the drawings that we have here of the properties, but, you know, she really wants to get back in since it's such a comprehensive, you know, 2-story renovation. All of the units are occupied right now. So I've been, you know, I've been kind of hesitant to let her and her plumbing team and, you know, environmental team get in there in the occupied units just because of the pandemic. We, you know, we have had cases there, so I've kind of been playing it cautiously, but we're definitely eager to get moving with that. So that's where we stand right now with that project.
So once she's in, she's able to kind of give you a better estimate on cost when you go to bid. Is that the process?
Yep, she will draw up her construction documents. We'll go out to bid for a contractor, and then move on from there.
Okay.
Barring, this might help with a little bit to understand the timetable, but so in February, before the pandemic, we were talking about going out to bid for contractors in August and starting the project in September. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Once you start construction, do you guys have an estimated timeline to completion, or is it too early to say?
It depends, I guess, on how much they find once they get in there. You know, there's always going to be change orders and things like that. But I think they said they're going to have, I don't know, I want to say 3 months. We're going to have to relocate the families during construction, but the plan is to just get in, relocate a family for, you know, 1 week in a hotel, and do each unit, you know, start to finish, all and work their way through 24.
Okay.
And maybe some phasing within that, like, you know, 2 at a time, start to finish, 2 at a time, start to finish, or whatnot. But yeah,
Okay.
Trying to do it with minimal disruption to the families.
I can't recall, is the money you would need to put the residents up in hotels, is that included in the allocation, or is that separate?
Well, it's not, I don't believe it was specifically outlined in the allocation from the CPC, but because of the CPC award, we were able to receive additional funds from the state. They call it a HILAP award. It stands for High Leverage Asset Preservation Program. So basically, once you receive once you receive the funding, you can apply for them to give you match funds. So that probably would be taking it out of the DHCD funds.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, in the end, even though the money's fungible, if you could have the cost of that separate from our money, it would be a big help because we technically can't fund that.
Sure, I'll definitely keep that in mind. Yep.
Yeah.
Just to jump in, Maggie, when you go in, now with everything being online now, you know, with our CIPs and Cap Hub and all of that, you're going to see when you actually get in there, when the project begins, but you'll see in your budgets, the separation between the HILAP funds and the CPC funds, and the way and so just so that the community knows, there's a state system that when either Maggie and or her architect and or her project managers go in, they won't be able to take the money from CPC for for items that don't fall under the purview of CPC. So, and then it gets reviewed probably 4 times before a check gets cut. So there is a stopgap there that protects us, that we're not funding the things we can't be funding.
Right.
But I mean, because of the fact of this funding, Maggie's, it's a double job. It's basically you're getting doubled your money, which is unbelievable, and is going to be so super for the families down at Groggy's.
That's great. Okay. Now, I don't know if you want to kind of go into, I think some of I'm assuming your potential projects that you outlined for us are really driven by the CNA, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd like to kind of go through and I assume, is this a prioritized list that you gave us?
It is, I just I believe I went in pretty much order of this.
Okay.
So yes, I actually, I had made this project, I had sort of made this spreadsheet for the North Andover Housing Board. I can certainly make a more comprehensive one for the CPC. But so we have, it's not ordered by priority, and we have had another project sort of jump to the head of our priority since I put this thing together, which would be roof replacement at Folds Terrace. We have 52 units at Folds Terrace. We recently cut back some low-hanging trees that had sort of been obscuring the roofs just in preparation for the winter. And unfortunately, when we did that, we got a much better view of the roofs, and the shingles are not in good shape. There's curling and cupping. We reached out to our state construction manager, and he was like, oh yeah, these need to get done. So that sort of jumped ahead in our priority list to hopefully be able to start work on that this spring and this summer. There's no active leaks right now, which is good. This project has already been approved by the state as one that definitely needs to get done, and their estimated cost is about $203,000.
203 or 230?
203.
Is that something you plan to apply to CPC for any funding, or?
That's right now. That's my plan. Yeah.
Okay.
To do that when the formal applications are due.
Okay. Okay. I'm not sure where our total allocation is. Are there any others you plan to come to with us this year as well, or?
Yes. I didn't know if there's, the type of projects that the CPC prefers to fund, if there's any special ones. I kind of put this list together with the pandemic in mind. During the summer months, a lot of our residents really kind of moved their social lives outside. We closed down the community rooms, and so residents were hanging out outside, dragging chairs out, things like that. This kind of went along with the CNA because that talked a lot about how we have a lot of outdoor space that could be better utilized. This would be sort of a quality of life improvement for a lot of the residents, particularly the elderly residents. One of the things that I would like to do possibly is make some type of patio, like the outdoor space utilization, the patio at Folds Terrace. There is no patio. I was thinking, maybe some type of patio with a permanent, picnic table cemented into the ground that, would be weather resistant and wouldn't be able to be moved, things like that, benches. And, I don't know how familiar you are with Bingham Way and O'Connor Heights, but they are actually connected in the back. And there's a path that's been trod by residents going back and forth, but I was thinking it might be nice to put in an actual path with maybe some site lighting and there's a big, sort of a big space between the two that could be used for outdoor space, because Bingham is, it's one of our most popular places for people to live. That being said, everybody's really packed in there. There's not much space other than right there. So we were thinking that might be a good idea, especially in light of our lives moving outside.
Sure. I don't want to speak for the rest of the committee. I don't know that we've ever had any formal doctrine of what we do or do not like to fund. I think probably in the past, we may have felt like we were flying a little bit blind, but now we've got that CNA as a guide, right? So if you're coming to us with a specific application in mind, and we can quickly reference the recommendations from Abacus and really understand, get a grasp on that project and the needs, we're I think, without speaking for the committee, we're going to tend to be deferential to you guys. You're in it, you're living it every day. So I think that's where the CNA is just so vital to helping us make informed decisions and guiding the priorities, because there's a lot that needs to be covered.
Right. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, one of the things that jumped out at me from the CNA that was a kind of a repeated theme. I hear where you're going with outdoor space and quality of life issues, but was water infiltration. Seems to be a problem at almost all of the projects. Am I wrong, or?
There's some basement water issues. I mean, based on complaints and calls that come in from residents, I wouldn't call that a priority, but obviously, architecturally, yes. It doesn't seem to be something that affects the day-to-day, but, the basements they do have moisture issues, for sure.
Okay. Sounds like some are worse than others. So I don't know. Speaking as a homeowner, it's the kind of thing that keeps you up at night, is all the damage water can do,
Yep. Yeah, it's been interesting to look through the CNA, because not everything matches the recommendations from our state construction managers either in terms of priority. So I've kind of been trying to, do some research and balance the different priorities that, that our the Department of Housing and Community Development construction managers, the things that they recommend as a priority, versus what the CNA does. And that would be one example that they have not put, anything marked that as a priority.
Right.
However, Fountain Drive comes to mind as, it is the oldest property as well. I don't know if you read the section about Fountain Drive, I was actually kind of surprised by that section. That's our most popular complex. We have the least amount of complaints from residents. Everybody there seems very happy. So I was kind of surprised, with the description of Fountain Drive in the needs assessment. That our maintenance department, they say, oh yeah, if I was moving into North Andover housing, that's where I would want to go, Fountain Drive. And so when I read that, I was kind of like, wow, oh, all right, this is a totally different. So
yeah, the consultant was sitting in the parking lot with a bulldozer.
Right.
Before I filibuster, does anyone have any questions for Maggie on this? I don't want to open it up to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I look back and think about, coming in after a first term, I think one of the things we were looking for are how can we help sort of fill a gap between what the state does and what other people can do, and how can we be sort of the most strategic, and also, since we're a little bit, relatively speaking, granted the money only comes once a year, but how can we help you be a little bit more nimble in meeting some of those needs? I think, like with the generators and so forth, we saw the need after that really bad winter where there are a lot of power outages, and we saw issues with heat and so forth, and we were able to sort of step up. So I think those are some of the things that I've gleaned from the years over of working with the committee. Like, how can we help be a force multiplier and get some of the urgent needs taken care of, as quickly as possible for you.
Okay, yeah. Right now the roof at Folds Terrace would probably be the most urgent need. the outdoor space utilization is kind of, these would be nice things that would never get funded by the state. They don't really have necessarily the money to do things other than, what's absolutely necessary. Are picnic tables necessary for housing? No. Are they nice to have? Did they improve the quality of life of the residents? Yes. So I guess that's what that's helpful to me, because that's sort of what I was trying to understand about, necessary, the things that the CPC might be interested in funding. But as you said, there's no straight, list of
Right.
priorities that's adopted by the committee.
And I know that one of the things we've heard in the past is, with the needs assessment, we sort of have a little bit of a rank ordering, like these things are more important than other things. And that might help, given the limited amounts that we have, is to say like, okay, this is identified as a serious issue and we want to sort of push it up so that we don't have people saying like, oh, well, this development's getting this, why not us? It should be like, this development's getting what they need, over the next year, and you'll get what you need, all in sort of priority order over what are the most important and vital sort of needs. So that was the reason why we, funded the needs assessment in the first place, was to be able to say that with a little bit more, be a little bit more specific about why we would fund one project one year versus another. So, and I don't know if that's something to bring back to the housing authority, is to say, that how can we work on sort of a comprehensive look, and like maybe a 3 or 4, 5-year look ahead, and say like, hey, these are our priorities over the next few years. How can we chunk this funding up to get these projects done? I mean, I think that's really where we'd like to see it. Like, we have a plan for the next 4 years. So when someone comes and says like, how come you're not doing this? You can say, well, because, this building was rated at us, like I'm in facilities myself. So you can do a facilities condition assessment and say like, hey, this building or this is rated at a 60 out of 100 and the other building's at a 70. So we're going to invest first in this building, and then we'll hit that building next year. And it's kind of laid out over a few years, and it's easier to build consensus. And I think gives us a little bit more guidance too on, how this is progressing. And if we were to see, a longer term plan, I think it would also, sort of help with the buy-in of everybody to say, hey, we're taking the long view. We're trying to make sure that the housing stock is, improved year over year, and we're meeting the residents' needs in a better way. I think that helps everybody, because, we're all on rolling 3-year terms. So, we switch out a little bit too. So I think that seeing that long plan will help everybody sort of get on board and see how we can make the housing authority properties better.
Great. That makes sense to me. We do have a rolling 5-year capital improvement plan already that is approved each year by the state, and it's voted on by our board of directors. A lot of those projects are funded somewhat by, the state. The scope sometimes is reduced based on the amount of funding, but, perhaps adding projects based from the CNA that are not listed as priorities by the state, maybe we'll be able to shrink that timeline a little.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Like I didn't, previously, correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who've served longer or alongside me, but we've never seen sort of the 5-year look ahead on what the plan is. It never came. It was always sort of project by project, which is great. But I think the bigger picture helps, everybody just be more comfortable.
Sure. That's definitely something I can provide. Yep.
Yeah, and I think, also, Bill mentioned being a force multiplier, and Tracy mentioned the matching funds earlier. Wherever there are projects that, can kickstart matching funds from other sources. I mean, I know there's an entire appendix back at the CNA of different ways to get some of these projects funded. Anything that can help stretch our dollar is certainly attractive to us as well.
Great. Okay.
Anyone have any other questions for Maggie right now? I did have one, and then this is probably way off in the big picture, but it was the, kind of alluded to it at the end, the potential redevelopment of Fountain Drive, right? So that was, kind of laid out in pretty big detail in the CNA. Obviously a massively expensive project, right? But one that has a potential to really boost the number of units and everything else with that particular property. Is that something that your board has, do you look at it and say, wow, we've got a lot of other fish to fry? Or is it something that you're going to continue to investigate? Obviously way more money than we could ever possibly fund, but I'm at this point curious about it because it could be transformative for the portfolio.
Could be transformative, but I think it's important to keep in mind that the North Andover portfolio has a lot of more immediate needs than redevelopment. Taking Fountain Drive and doing what, while wonderful, you're displacing a lot of elderly and disabled people for a long period of time. Where, while the Housing Authority is a municipal agency unto itself, it has to answer to the state and the feds. And so there, it's really, really complicated when you tear down and build in public housing. Incredibly difficult. So being a member of the Board of Commissioners, and as Frank is as well, obviously, while I think it's something that Maggie would have the full support of all of the commissioners, it's also not something that anyone would expect anytime soon.
Of course, again, just being even if there weren't the other hurdles of, being a part of a affordable housing, you're talking years and years and millions upon millions of dollars. So absolutely, it's
development, unfortunately, in public housing, in particular on the state side, is it's really, really difficult to do it under the umbrella of the Housing Authority. One of the things that could happen and could happen a lot sooner than a new Fountain Drive would be the Housing Authority possibly moving towards creating its own nonprofit, as many other housing authorities throughout the state have. And that eventually can become a development arm where it partners with other nonprofits, or, and there's a mirror board and those types of things. I may have touched on it in a couple of meetings in the past. But it's definitely something that the Board of Commissioners in North Andover, I could see doing long before we moved into kind of that Fountain Drive thing, because of I hate to just simplify it and say the red tape, but
no, it's fair. The displacement of that many people, of course, is a massive massive concern. Obviously, that had to be part of the project.
Even in Newburyport, we have a small nonprofit, but I have 2 buildings, 8 units. We're looking at picking up another unit. Even a nonprofit arm of North Andover Housing Authority could pick up those 1 units that come up all the time and lose their affordability. That could be something that the nonprofit arm could really do and make impact over 5 to 10 years, where, Fountain Drive would. That's a real tricky one.
Okay. It sounds a bit of a white elephant, maybe to try.
Yeah, because it would be so wonderful, but never say never. I didn't say never.
No, I hear you. Let me ask you another question that's just thinking about, which is partially out of my own ignorance, but also part of what I do for a living too. Are there opportunities for public-private partnerships to try and amplify dollars spent? Are there other incentives that can help encourage more development? Obviously, we've talked about it ad nauseum, the need for more housing in Metro Boston. It's a huge need throughout the region. and land costs as you get closer to the city just make it prohibitive for affordable housing. So they do look to communities further away from the urban core. Are there opportunities? Am I just or am I kind of?
There are, which is why a nonprofit under the umbrella of the North Andover Housing Authority, it would become the development arm of the authority.
Got it. Okay, so that would be the venue, the vehicle to achieve that.
The vehicle to achieve it, right? Exactly.
Okay. I had no other questions on this right now. So I suspect I gotta check. I think our applications are probably due at the end of February. We'll be talking that, but I'll make sure you're well aware in advance of what that filing deadline is. And we're actually gonna be talking about our process next for this year. So we'll make sure you have all the information you need to get together a complete application and start getting some of those priorities funded.
Great. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, thank
Any
you.
Thank you so much, Maggie.
Great work. Thank you.
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That was, I think it was productive. Moving right along. Next on the agenda, we have to discuss our application process. I meant to look it up before the meeting. Jillian sent it to me. I believe our applications are due into us by February 25th. Dan, do you happen to have that off the top of your head? Do you know?
Are you asking me when the applications are due?
Yeah, when they're due into us. Jillian had sent it to me, and I miss it. So.
No,
I mean, Brian, over the years, that date is floated based on when the selectmen want to review the list of projects and when the FinCom wants to review the list of projects. I mean, the safest thing would be to look at what date we put in last year, and whatever that Friday is or day of the week is, do the same this time. That feels a week or two later than I recollect it being, but I may be wrong.
That's what I thought as well.
It's Friday, February 5th.
February 5th, not the 25th. Okay, got it. February 5th. Okay, so that gives us 2 meetings, or 2 meetings between now and when the applications are in. And it typically gives us 2 meetings to discuss before they go to the next step in the process. Correct? Is that kind of in our process?
Yeah, I mean, usually what we've ended up doing, depending on how many we get, we've called a special meeting, just because I think generally you want to give people as much time as you possibly can to complete their applications. And if that causes us to double up in meetings, then so be it.
Okay. All right, so I want to talk about a couple of things as part of the application process. We had started last year kind of talking about a review and some edits to the application itself. And I think we ended up hitting a wall, hit COVID, everything else. We never really made any true changes to it. So I want to talk about a couple of things. Dan has gone together and gotten some examples of what other towns have done. I think we had some of this last year as well. To possibly make some changes to our submission sheet. Those are all available in the packet to review now. And I want to talk a little bit about how we make sure that we go from application to our approval process to making sure it's all followed through to actual project completion, right? So how do we make sure we don't lose track of things? Is there a mechanism by which we document everything we discuss as a part of the application, our comments to it, any revisions to it, and then make sure that serves as essentially the guiding instrument for the legal documents that get drafted. So I'm kind of putting that all on the table as an overall process, recognizing that first takes people getting it into us and making sure they've got complete information, and then what we do with it afterwards. And how we kind of manage that process internally. So I guess I'll start with the application itself. I think we've been using pretty much the same one for at least as long as I've been on the committee. did anyone have any thoughts or changes or any specific items that they felt ought to be included based on review of other municipalities? Some of what we had talked about last year, I think we addressed the applicability clauses, but I think we had looked to try and get maybe some more specifics from applicants, and almost create kind of a scoring sheet on our end of items, some of the things we had talked about last year. Is there still an appetite from anyone on that?
I mean, I think, I just opened these up actually as we started the meeting, but
Okay.
I think I think it might help a little bit. Because I know some things we've done that have been really good. Like we've always had people come in the fall who are considering projects, and that's been helpful because I think we've explained a lot of the guidelines to them. But then we get other applications, that haven't really walked through the guidelines yet. And so then the timing is tricky to try to, get everything assembled the right way and back to us in time. So I think, some of the things that I saw in the other applications that, kind of walk people through the law a little bit and ask them a few questions to really ask them to kind of tie their project more concretely to the guidelines of what can be funded under CPA funds. It could be helpful.
Yeah, I think one thing along those lines I would say, and it's in our packet, is just the chart of allowable spending that one we should all be familiar with, but that should really be included as an exhibit, I think, to the application. So that everyone can kind of look at that and just make sure that it's falling into one of those buckets, and if nothing else, even just make sure that they note which buckets this funding is falling into. I think that would help protect us in that regard.
Right.
Do folks feel like maybe we need more time to discuss this, and maybe we stick with the status quo with a couple modifications for this year? Obviously, we've got not a lot of time. We want to make sure the application is standardized. If people have to get their applications to us by the 5th, we want to make sure people have enough time to get everything put together. This is something we can try and take on in the spring after we've gotten this year's submissions. I don't want to rush it through. I want to make sure everyone's had enough time to really think about it, if we all agree it's a goal that we want to try and achieve.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right, then, someone motion to table this one for us?
A motion to table the application process and continue with the one in place for this fiscal year's funding.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Terry?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Bill?
In favor.
Tracy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
CJ?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. So moved. Thank you. All right. Well, if everyone can take a minute between now and next month to kind of review some of the stuff that Dan put together there in the folder, feel free to gather your own thoughts, and we'll kind of continue this discussion a little bit later on this year. All right. Next on the agenda would be project signage. So this is something we've had on the agenda for a while now to kind of talk about how we get to some sort of a standard unified, whether it's CPC or a Town of North Andover brand for the projects that we're funding. And obviously the Glenny Woodlot is kind of, like we talked about earlier with Dave, giving us a little bit of a reason to keep pushing this forward. So I think do we even know right now which projects are waiting for signage from us, other than the playgrounds have all been set? Do we know which other ones are waiting for signage? I know Rolling Ridge is probably waiting on a sign, right, Terry? We talk about that one?
Yeah, this there's going to be a little problem. Some of the older projects don't have in them that to allow for signage, so we may have to do something to put money forward for some of the older projects because it never mentions signage in the project.
Okay. Let's make it a note on that. So one of the issues I was with the Glenny Woodlot sign that Dave put forward is that it does make no mention of CPA funding. Just looking at that one in particular, I really like the sign. I think it's an attractive sign. It's got kind of a simple elegance that can kind of, apply to, I think, a number of properties and create a brand unto itself. But it does make no mention of CPA funding. And how do we feel about that?
No. What was the sign that Lori brought to us? I mean, shouldn't we be just kind of sticking with the entrance to North Andover signs, that more, what is it, maroon kind of red and a little bit of, I know we still haven't kind of come up with the wording for funded by whatever, but. That Glenny sign is my point. Like that's not even close to any colors North Andover uses, even on our street signs. So,
right.
I mean, I think we would kind of want to at least keep, the color scheme or what have you. And in truth, the North Andover seal isn't that busy. It's a canoe on Lake Chigawik. So, but I'm just saying, I just feel like, however I'll go along and get along on the wording. That's not a big deal to me, but I think kind of staying within the theme of the community always. And then my other question would be, John would probably know this best. Who could put forward a project for, as Terry was saying, a lot of the old projects have no money for signage. Who would bring a project like that forward, John? And can we fund something like that outside of the scope of the old projects?
Well, again, I don't know. I think we'd have to go back and look at on a case-by-case basis. I don't really know the answer to the question. I mean, the cost of the signage is probably de minimis, and we could collectively fund it through the budget. So I'm not overly worried about that.
All right.
I think it's more along the lines is if there's a situation where a certain type of signage was precluded, as I think Terry and Brian mentioned on Rolling Ridge or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember that there were any of those, but that would be probably, in my mind, a bigger issue. I mean, I think the one issue that I would say that struck me from what Greenbelt said tonight is their look and feel, the curb and feel of the sign is kind of a lot different than the kinds of signs we looked at the last time. It's because we couldn't take one of the signs that we had proposed and hang them on that thing that he's going to put in the ground because it's not even the same type of material, the same type of fit. So the question becomes, do we treat projects that are maybe land projects one way and land in parks one way and things that are more like building oriented a different way, because I think that the type of signs we looked at play better on a building, whereas they may not play standard. And I hadn't even really thought of that before, but that's the one thing that struck me from his conversation tonight.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point.
Yeah, I would agree with you, John. I don't think certain projects, it wouldn't look right if we do them all the exact same. Certainly, you have to fit the project.
Yeah, we'd almost have to come up with, again, let's not forget, the purpose of the sign, right, is to make sure that people know how to use it, know it's available, know that it's there. And, when they're driving by, I think that's kind of how they designed their sign, right? It's an awareness sign of this is where I turn in if I want to go to the Glenny Woodlot. We have the dual purpose of making sure that we're informing the taxpayers of where their money went, right? Which you're not going to get in a big writing on a sign driving by.
So Brian, if I can make a suggestion, rather than trying to design a sign, why don't we say what we want on the sign, and then the sign is designed to the project?
I like that.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
I think that's a great idea, Terry.
So I agree in not wanting to necessarily design the sign. Do we want consistency from project to project in the look and feel of the signs is my only question on that. Are we establishing a brand, or do we not want to micromanage that?
Maybe we should develop some sort of guidelines.
Yeah, because I see like, I almost think of it as like, I see like three sort of basic types. Like we've got the playgrounds where it's something in an established spot where we're trying to say CPC funding was involved here. Then we've got sort of the trailhead signs, like the Glenny Woodlot sign. And then there are other signs, like I think of the Leonard Farm, right? That, was a fairly substantial purchase where I just like people driving down Dale Street to, as it goes down the hill there, to know that that's a CPC property because the trails is off a dead end road, and I think the Greenbelt actually does a really good job in their signage around where you drive around the North Shore and you see the Greenbelt signs and you're like, oh, I know that land's preserved. I think it's really good for the community for people to see that. Like this, you're going to see this landscape as long as you live in this town. That's what one of those signs would say.
Yep.
Well, I'm still kind of with Terry, like come up with the correct verbiage and then each project, some may just be a little on a slant on a stick and it's just very small. Some are going to be big like McAvoy Park. Some may be a swinging sign like the one we saw this evening. But yeah, I also like guidelines. Are we going to stay within the colors of the town? I feel like we're killing signs to death. We talk about them a lot, but I never realized it would actually be this difficult. When you can't. If it was all buildings, you can brand. If it was all parks, you can brand. But the projects vary so much. So.
Well, it actually, Tracy, makes me laugh because all the years I've been on the planning board, we've worked forever on a sign by law and nobody can ever get it right. So it's bigger than just
crazy.
That might be a good case for Dan to go out and look at a couple, again, some ideas of other places, because I suspect somebody's figured out how to do this better than we have.
I feel like you're right. Yeah. Dan, that would be great.
Yeah.
I do think we have some of those. I remember we had some of this when we were discussing this last year. I think if we can make at least some progress on our end tonight, we had the language discussion with Laurie when she was in last time. We got that achieved. Can we all agree that at least there's some basic components that have got to be a part of every sign, right? The property name and a brief statement that this property is preserved through the use of CPA funds.
Yep.
Do we need anything else more than that?
And I think you need that icon that somebody can put their phone up to, even if there's nothing on it right now, but at least create the icon so we have that as a standard.
Great. Yeah, the QR code. Which
Wrong guy to get that right. Yes,
yeah.
Terry.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if there's anything else we need to discuss really on signs right at this point. I mean, like I said, none of us are designers. I don't want to hold up the Essex County folks because they're obviously want to get that moving. I'm admittedly kind of a bit of a loss as to what maybe our next step would be on this. So,
Brian, do you think you get one or two of us to get together with their designer and work something out, and then we'll send it out to the group?
I think that's fine. Yep, I think that's fine. Do I have volunteers?
I'll do it.
Rick, thank you. Okay, great. All right. Yeah, listen, if Dave's offering up his designers, we can take advantage of that and just apply it across the board, get a standard package, and then off to our vendors when we need to put in some signage. So
I'll work with Rick too, if that's okay.
that's by all means. I'm sure Rick will appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is the signage horse dead for now? Anyone have anything else?
Blue for now.
Okay. All right, great. All right, next on our agenda is to approve the minutes from November 12th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
I think, Rick, you're the only one who probably can't vote on this. I think you were not last meeting, right? Or were you?
No, I was not.
Okay,
Present.
all right. Okay, Terry,
I would approve.
Bill,
Approved.
Tracy,
Approved.
John,
Yes.
CJ,
Yes.
Frank,
Approve.
and I'm a yes as well. So moved. Great. I had nothing else on the agenda tonight to discuss, unless anyone's heard of any projects that may be coming down the pipeline. I've got nothing, unless anything else has come up from our previous meetings, but and what we discussed tonight. So I have not heard of any other projects that are coming down the road. So
I think it's going to be a slow year with the plague and all.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Okay.
Yeah. Has anyone talked, I mean, one thing that's, is interesting, sort of looking through the applications. I know that the Affordable Housing Trust has helped out with a lot of rental assistance. It's been very timely.
They'll be coming forward for their annual.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. I figured
That's not really a project. It's a shift of funds.
Right.
That's easier.
So, okay. That's all I had.
I wish you all peace, joy, and happy holidays.
You as well, Tracy. Is
I
that a
hope you all
motion?
find a
And
vaccine
you.
in your stocking.
Is that an official motion, Tracy?
Yes, it is. So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Baby too.
Everyone, happy holidays. Thank you for the time tonight. We'll
Very merry.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.